Hello and welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television, reaching you from the nation's capital in Abuja. It's a beautiful morning here in the nation's capital. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining us on the program again.
All right, it is definitely a beautiful Tuesday morning and it's Daybreak on Trust TV. I am Ibrahim Yusuf. Welcome to the show.
Well, Ibrahim, I don't know if you have tried to make withdrawals already. The withdrawal limit is on set by the Central Bank of Nigeria. That started from yesterday. And so it means that as an individual, you cannot withdraw more than 500,000 naira in a week. So you have at least 100,000 naira per day. That's the new limit now.
Well, I haven't tried it myself, but I know a lot of people. Some people have actually expressed some concern for people that actually do day-to-day businesses and actually move large amounts of cash, and they are complaining about that as well.
But I think that with the reversal of that decision, or I would say rather extending or expanding the amount. I think the concerns have been sorted, isn't it?
Some of the concerns have actually been sorted.
For POS, for instance, operators who will usually make withdrawals, of that much amount. I don't know, as POS operators now, whether they will be categorized as individuals
or as a business,
or as corporate.
I think definitely that needs to be looked into, because I mean, like, POS operators all use a huge amount of cash on a daily basis, and I think maybe if they are treated as individuals, the 100,000 naira, I don't think it will cut it.
For them.
Yeah, I don't think it will cut it,
because a lot of them, some of them have branches spread across.
Exactly.
And so if someone has that kind of business, how does he operate?
Well, maybe I think if it is a registered company, I think it should be treated as a corporate organization. Yeah, but if it is just an individual, then I believe that
also leads to the issue of making sure that more people register their businesses.
Exactly.
With the CAC.
Exactly.
And because if you look at this POS, industry, it has created a lot of jobs for people.
It has, and it has made things a lot easier. I mean, a lot of people can't remember the last time they had to go to the ATM. You understand, or go to the bank to actually make withdrawals or transfers. So it has actually made a lot of things easier, gave banking access to a lot of people who might not have had that access, and it should be encouraged.
It should be. All right, let's take a look at what's happening in Nigeria this morning, going by our headlines. The first one here: NSCDC arrests 5 suspected vandals in FCT.
And in politics, Binani will be first elected female governor in Nigeria, says Buhari.
IBB off to Germany for medical checkup.
All right, now let's take a look at the details. Operatives of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, have arrested 5 suspects for vandalizing bridges in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Olushola Odumosu, the spokesman of the Corps, said in a statement on Monday that members of the criminal syndicate were arrested following credible information and surveillance mounted by the Directorate of Intelligence and Investigation Crack Squad from the national headquarters of the Corps, with the support of other stakeholders. The Commandant General of the NSCDC, Dr. Ahmad Abubakar Audi, worried by the incessant vandalism and theft of manhole covers on roads in the FCT, directed operatives of the Corps to redouble their efforts in ending the menace. Odumosu said following this directive, officers and men of the Corps immediately evolved new measures to protect critical national assets and infrastructure in the country, adding that the move had resulted in the arrest of the suspects, who confessed to having carried out the act at night.
President Muhammadu Buhari has said that the All Progressives Congress governorship candidate, Senator Aisha Nahiru Ahmed Binani, will become the first elected female governor in Nigeria. Buhari stated this when he visited Lamido of Adama's Palace in Yola on Monday. Buhari and the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, among other APC dignitaries, are in Adama for a governorship rally. The president said that Binani's election as the next governor of Adamawa will open opportunities for women in the country and send a signal to the world on Nigeria's leadership maturity. He said that he will continue to provide moral support for her success in the forthcoming polls.
Meanwhile, former military president, retired General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, has traveled to Germany for a medical checkup. Alhaji Mahmoud Abdullahi, media aide and close family confidant, disclosed this to journalists in Minna. He said he cannot give more details about the trip since he did not discuss it with his boss before he traveled out of the country. The media aide assured the public that there was no cause for alarm, as the former leader had only traveled for a routine medical checkup.
All right, now let's take a look at some of the packages we have this morning. Women farmers are major stakeholders in the Nigerian agricultural sector who contribute a lot to the country's food security. Ibrahim Ismail speaks to a woman farmer in Gombe State on successes and challenges faced during the 2022 season.
Esther Sampson is a Nigerian farmer based in Gombe State. During the 2022 farming season, she cultivated beans and maize. As a woman farmer, Esther used to support her family from the farm produce she cultivates, as she often gets bumper harvest even at a small scale level.
Ni sai dai in ce na gode Ubangiji saboda maganan awu bana ciki.
I thank God because I don't buy grains. I support my family and other people from my harvest. I don't depend on my husband.
A cikin amfanin da na noman nan zan biya bukatuna ba tare da na takura masa ba ko na jira shi ba.
As a woman farmer, Esther is facing difficulties ranging from high cost of fertilizer and other farm implements to discrimination because of her gender. This, she said, could be part of the reasons she couldn't attend a bumper harvest last year.
Takin da kake saya ka sa zaka nemi mutane kana gudun karka nemi
maza. If you approach some men, they will not agree to work on your farm to apply fertilizer. Even some young laborers will say the farm is not yours. If they leave you alone, there is problem.
In aka bar maka kai kaɗai ka sunkiya a matsayin ka na mace, namiji bai tallafa maka ba, gaskiya akwai matsala.
Despite all the hiccups, the mother of two believes that if given the required support, women can contribute to Nigeria's food security.
Gaskiya inda za a tallafa a ɗaga mu mata.
If they can help us, we can contribute a lot to food security. I can do a lot personally to ensure food security. According to Women Lead Agriculture in Nigeria, women smallholder farmers constitute 70 to 80% of labor force in agriculture, but are said to be battling limited access to farmlands and credit facilities. From Gombe, Ibrahim Ismail reporting for Trust TV.
Meanwhile, students of Kaduna Polytechnic have decried the poor state of hostel facilities in the institution due to the abandoned renovation work at the main campus of the school. Students say the renovation of the hostel, which has been left unattended for over a year, has forced them into renting accommodation outside the campus, a situation they say is detrimental to their safety and learning. Let's take a look.
This is one of the hostel blocks at the main campus in Kaduna Polytechnic. Students here say renovation work has been abandoned for more than a year.
This place has been abandoned since 2019, and we are even because as we heard that they sold this place to another person, but it's like that is not what's happened, because since then we never been seeing any changes in this place.
Even up to date, sometimes you might even be in the hostel, you can just see shouting that somebody said they found a body snake in underground. Sometimes because of the dusty and very hectic environment, which is not supposed to be for students, even is keeping our life in danger.
So our hostel were dumped for a long time without renovating it, and we need a convenient environment for sleeping in order to learn more and better.
The Student Union of Kaduna Polytechnic, while addressing journalists, faulted the award of the contract for the project and are demanding the revocation of the contracts.
Outright revocation of contracts by the federal government through Ministry of Education and Infrastructure Construction and Regulation Commission, ICRC, prompt re-awarding of the contract to another contractor with reliable track record and immediate cash backing.
The Student Affairs Department of the institution also raised concerns on the abandoned hostel project, saying many students are seeking for accommodation which they cannot provide at the moment.
Part of the management, our concern is to see this place being renovated and we put our students back in because of the problem that we are sustaining now. we have still quite a number of hostels that we cannot accommodate the students. And now we have many students that are seeking for such accommodations. Some of them have to go outside, despite the fact the fear of threat, insecurity, that they have to, because we couldn't accommodate them in the system. But if you say that these contractors have done their work, then yeah, by then we don't have problem issuing such.
For them to have a conducive environment for learning, the students are appealing to the federal government to ensure the speedy completion of the abandoned project. Bella Musa, Trust TV News Kaduna.
Now, despite heavy criticism and alleged non-performance by the present administration from critics and the opposition, the federal government says the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration is leaving behind a legacy of revamped security, social investment, self-sufficiency in staples, and probity, among others. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, stated this at the resumed PMB administration scorecard series 2015 to 2023, where he described claims that the Buhari government achieved nothing in other sectors and only a little in infrastructure as false. The report.
The 16th edition of the President Muhammadu Buhari scorecard series opened with the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, saying beyond infrastructure, the President is leaving behind unprecedented legacies of development that have enhanced the quality of lives of beneficiaries.
Our pace-setting social investment programs like Empower, school feeding, conditional cash transfer, and GEP, that's Government Enterprise Empowerment Program, have benefited millions of our citizens, both young and old, and this can neither be trivialized nor denied. The Buhari administration is leaving a legacy of putting Nigeria on the path of self-sufficiency in many staples, including rice.
Mohammed added that the current administration has ensured inclusiveness, especially in the areas of infrastructure and social development.
There is no state in Nigeria today that is not witnessing at least a road or a bridge or a housing project, not one. The Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning has also told us here how Mr. President approved tranches upon tranches of funding to states, irrespective of their party affiliation, to enable them meet their obligations to the people. What of the legacy of the second Niger Bridge? Building that bridge almost 60 years after the commissioning of the Niger Bridge.
In the fight against corruption, he says the administration has exposed and put on trial those found culpable, as well as enacted laws that have strengthened the war against graft.
The EFCC, the ICPC, and other anti-corruption agencies have gone beyond merely arresting and prosecuting alleged corrupt officials to institutionalizing the fight against corruption through various programs. The Buhari administration is leaving a legacy of enacting landmark laws, including the harmonized mental health bill and discrimination against persons with disability prohibition bill, both of which have been signed into law by Mr. President.
The minister says although naysayers will always want to amplify the negatives of the present government and try to twist the records to suit their narrative, the PMB legacy of unprecedented development across all sectors in the past 7 years cannot be written off. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
And now let's look at political matters. Presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Rabiu Kwankwaso, on Monday inaugurated a 1,053-member campaign council with a charge on its various organs to put hands on deck and drive the party to electoral victory. Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman also reports that the NNPP presidential candidate and his party goes public to raise what it called needed funds for logistics. Take a look.
Barely 6 weeks to presidential election in Nigeria. The candidate of the NNPP is racing against time to set up the necessary machinery that will drive his campaign across 774 local government areas in the 36 states of the Federation in what promises to be a highly competitive race to the presidency.
Our political movement, both the TNM, Concosia, and the NNPP levels, is driven by committed and dedicated volunteers who invest their resources, time, and energy, bearing in mind that Nigeria's economy is in tatters and income levels are shrinking and the purchasing power is weakening by the hour.
The New Nigeria People's Party is also not losing sight to the fact that it has to raise the necessary funds that would help in prosecuting the presidential campaign in view of scarce resources at its disposal.
We made it a duty that the few convoy that we have, we visit the people. By that, we were able to assess and see the ecstasy of young men and women who show interest, who show love for this great party.
We don't play money politics, but we need a whole lot of money for logistics and to ensure that we succeed fully by the help of God.
This is time for us to lead, for you to lead Nigeria, because the course is clear and our victory is certain, inshallah.
A 1,053-member campaign council comprising of 6 components, chaired by the presidential candidate Rabiu Kwankwaso, is expected to take the challenging task of mobilizing Nigerians to vote for the party as it kicks off zonal rallies on the 12th of this month. The party says its message is a new and better Nigeria is possible. Shapiro Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
President Muhammadu Buhari has again urged Nigerians to resist vote buying in the forthcoming general elections. Now, the president stated this in Yola on Monday while flagging off the campaign of the APC governorship candidate. Trust TV's Salis Lawan reports that party chieftains were also calling on the APC stakeholders to work towards ensuring victory for the party at all levels. The report.
Muhammadu Buhari Esquire, as it was tagged, agog with APC party faithful, national leaders and political gladiators as the APC governorship candidate Senator Aishatu Dahiru Ahmed Binani flags up her campaigns ahead of the general elections. One after the other, they made their entrance. The APC presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu makes his appearance.
Progress Binani, employment Binani, joy happiness Binani, welfare Binani, no great Binani. God bless you now.
The arrival of President Muhammadu Buhari in company of the APC governorship candidate Senator Aishatu Dahiru Ahmed Binani signaled the commencement of the event. State, national and other leaders of the party took turns to eulogize the presidential and state governorship candidate, giving reasons why they should be trusted with their mandates.
It is now in Adamawa. You want to produce the first female governor in Nigeria. Haba, Mutane Adamawa, you are very lucky. Are you not lucky? Are you not lucky? So today is just to confirm that day.
Yeah. This goes to show that Adamawa people are fed up with PDP government. So people are here eagerly waiting to vote out PDP in Adamawa State. Bring back APC power.
Women showed solidarity to the only female governorship candidate in the country. Senator Binani promises more if voted into power. President Muhammadu Buhari again calls on the electorate to exercise their franchise by voting the ruling party back to power.
I advise you to please be focused. APC came into the political field to make sure that Nigerians are recognized as the voters of the country. They are nobody's state, they are nobody's vote. They are fellow Nigerians.
The governorship candidate was then presented the flag of the party, which symbolizes the mandate of the party. Binani is now set to embark on a rigorous campaign with just less than 3 months to the governorship election. From Yola, Salis Lawan, Trust TV News.
Now, still talking politics, the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi has held a town hall meeting at Efurun, Uvwe local government area as part of his campaign for the 2023 elections. Fielding questions at the meeting, which also served as his presidential rally in Delta State, Obi told his supporters not to vote for their tribe or religion, as no tribe or religion buys bread cheaper, but to vote for him en masse, as he represents commitment and capacity to turn around the country for good. While assuring the people that a new Nigeria is possible, Obi promised not to give excuses, but take on Nigeria's problems head-on. The national chairman of the Labour Party, Julius Abure, in a remark, said that the Nigerian economy is not working and urged supporters to obtain their permanent voters' cards to enable them vote for Peter Obi, whom he said will make Nigeria work again.
I'm contesting this job as a Nigerian, and I'm contesting it because I know that I can turn around this country. I'm contesting it because I know that I'm qualified to do the job. Now, next month will be based on character. It will be based on competence. It will be based on commitment. And based on compassion. We want people who want to save Nigeria. And I'm saying to Nigerians, vote for me and hold me responsible. I have a new Nigeria.
Today, Nigeria again is at a crossroads. The economy is not working. Insecurity is ravaging the country. The country is deteriorating. Will worry carry last this time around? That is why I want to appreciate all of you today for coming out en masse to support the cause to change Nigeria, to support the cause to rescue Nigeria. And the answer to the resolutions of all the crises in the country reside in Labour Party and its presidential candidate.
All right, that wraps up the headlines and reports for this hour on Daybreak. We'll take a short break, and when we return, the program continues as we take a look at the headlines of the newspapers this morning. You stay with us.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
As part of efforts to support Africa's goal of strengthening...
Now looking at the activity chart, as you can see right here, a total volume of 130...
Created a Boko Haram crisis that at that time was restricted to Yobe.
How secure are they? You can see security men with blood.
This is the road leading up to the...
Leading, if you look at English squad, you are looking at EPL, you are looking at their names. You are not looking at...
That's great.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
All right, thanks for staying. Time for us to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. Basically, the stories on the front pages of our newspapers this morning. We'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story there says, Education Ministry, Supreme Court and 50 others high corruption risk That's according to ICPC. It has the riders that says 131 MDAs fail ethics, integrity, compliance, lottery fund, environment, state house among top 5. Assessment targeted at boosting transparency in government, says the commission. You also have report shows failure of criminal justice system. That's according to experts. You'll find all the details of that story on page 4. It also has a breakdown of ICPC Ethic and Integrity Compliance Scorecard of 2022. You'd see that in the infograph just below the story there. Also, beside that, you have at the top of, or I would say rather above the lead story, elections face cancellation, postponement over insecurity. That's according to INEC. You'd find that on page 12. And then the next story there, 2 killed as Yoruba Nation agitators police clash in Lagos. All of that on page 6. Also, Nigeria records 170.2 trillion naira worth of foreign trade in 5 years. At the footnote, also, a new Nigeria possible under me. Kwankwaso Great Campaign Council launches fundraising portal. You'd find also beside the infograph there, Yauri girls, parents resort to crowdfunding to raise 100 million naira ransom. Herbalist arrested for impregnating woman in Kano. Residents kick as FCTA moves to reintroduce Park and Pay. These are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, not forgetting that it's also 574 days since the 11 schoolgirls of FGC Birnin Yauri have been abducted, and also 546 days since one student of Bethel Baptist High School, Kujama, is still in captivity. These are the major stories here.
All right, next we'll take a look at the Punch newspaper. The major headline on the front page reads, Cash limits, customers protest as banks begin enforcement. Details of that can be found on page 24, and it comes with riders here that says customers say policy will affect cash-based businesses, demand fresh review, and bank ATMs dispense old notes despite CBN directive. New note scarcity persists. And well, they have pictures there of the recent clash between the Yoruba Nation protesters and, of course, the police in Lagos, and how Yoruba Nation protesters converged 3 a.m. members killed. Details of that can be found on page 1 and 3. And then protesting police students block Ibadan roads. Governor intervenes. That is on page 14. Quite a disturbing story here. Pastor raped my daughter for 3 years. That is according to a mother. Story details of that can be found on page 4 and 5. DSS director's wife orders Kano governorship candidates arrest. And that is on page 2 of the Punch. Towards the top of the front page there, beside the nameplate, Dokwesi, UK police deepen probe. Controversy surrounds airport incidents. And that details of that can be found on page 14. At the very top of the nameplate there, scarcity. Federal government orders NNPC to reduce petrol price. And government acquires stakes in Dangote refinery. 3 others. Details on page 23. Gunmen demand 620 million naira ransom for abducted train passengers. And you can find details of that on page 2. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
All right. Well, Ibrahim, I would like for us to take a look at the lead story on the Daily Trust newspaper before we look at the other papers. This is scary, really, when you hear stories like this. Now, basically talking about agencies of government and ministries that are prone to corruption and also haven't demonstrated, ethics and integrity compliance, by the assessment of the ICPC. Now, some of the ministries that are found culpable in this, Ministry of Education, the Supreme Court. Now, these ministries and agencies are institutions of governments that are supposed to see to the implementation of government policies.
Exactly.
How then do we translate, policy to implementation if key institutions, key ministries, are not considered to comply.
You know, we always say that corruption is the bane of society. Corruption has edged deep into our culture and all that. But it's really alarming when things like this are brought to light and you see the rot that is actually in the system. When you have institutions like with Ministry of Education and the Supreme Court, I mean, like indicted for having failed ethics and integrity tests. I mean, like it's really disheartening because just like you said, these are institutions of government that are supposed to translate policy into government policy into true action and things that we need to see on ground so that we can have a better country. But unfortunately, if these institutions are facing this sort of rot, then it leaves a lot to be desired when you talk about translating these government policies to have the desired effect. And
worrisome really is the judiciary here. In the case of the Supreme Court,
exactly.
It is often said that the judiciary is the last hope of the common man.
Exactly.
That's a cliche now that we hear all the time. So if by this assessment, the Supreme Court is failing in that regard, then where is the hope of the common man really?
Exactly,
because,
and that is how it's supposed to be. The Supreme Court, or should I say the judiciary, should be the last hope of the common man. It should be somewhere that you know that when you go there, justice will be done and you'll actually get a fair hearing. And of course, you have, it's impartial and you can get the decisions and in your favor if you're actually on the right side of the law. Unfortunately, if you have a situation like this, whereby an institution like that is being indicted for failing ethics and competency, integrity tests, really, there's a serious problem.
Yes, and it calls for a reawakening, really, going by this. Now, also another story worrisome. The INEC now issuing, raising alarm, saying that there's a tendency for the cancellation or even postponement of, the election. Now, this is something that we've been preparing for years, and then only for us to, few days to the election, INEC is raising this alarm, and it's really worrisome. And I hope that we don't get to that point. And I hope that security agencies are doing everything within their power to make sure that we have a smooth and a heat-free election. I mean, the consequence of this will be that if we are unable to conduct this election as at when due, there's likely to be a constitutional crisis.
Of course.
And that's a problem. I mean, when you have the current administration looking to exit the office on May 29, that could be hampered if you have a postponement
or cancellation,
a cancellation of that election. So whatever it takes to make sure that these elections happen, I think we should make it happen. In 2015, I recall a few months to the election, the previous administration of President Goodluck Jonathan, we understand based on reports that mercenaries were brought in to bring stability to some parts of the country, the northeastern part of the country, where we had, very serious threats of insurgency there. So whatever it takes, really, to make sure that we have these elections. I don't know the areas that pose most threats, most of the threats this time around. I know that perhaps the southeastern part of the country, where we've seen destruction of INEC facilities, by gunmen,
unknown
gunmen,
exactly.
And all that. So hopefully would see that even though INEC has given us that assurance all the time, even as they are making this statement, they are also reassuring that INEC will do whatever it needs to do.
But this is something that we have been saying for a very long time. I mean, like, it's something that we have been saying for a very long time. These are things that are staring us right in the face. If there's no security, if you cannot guarantee the safety of the lives of the electorate, or can't guarantee the safety or protection of election materials and election officials as well, definitely it will be difficult for elections to hold. And we've said that. We've been talking about this for a very long time. And INEC has been giving us assurances that these elections will hold. They're in tandem with the security agencies. They're putting things in motion and hoping that things will happen. Let's just pray and hope that truly these machineries are being put in place. These security agencies are on top of the situation and these elections can actually hold. it might not hamper the elections, the generality of the election, I mean, like in everywhere in Nigeria. But there are certain places that we know are prone to these sort of things.
Yes.
I mean, priority attention should be given to those places.
Yes, and you know, another danger is the outcome of the election overall at the end of the day, the integrity of the outcome of the election at the end of the day. Because when you have delays in the pronouncements of results, you know, it creates room, you know, for all sorts of things, you know,
So I think that's what the Electoral Act actually seeks to abolish. It seeks to have a situation whereby we will have a generally acceptable process that can bring in an election result that we can all believe has integrity. You understand? So that the blowback after the election will not be as much, because if people doubt the integrity of the election, that is when problems actually seems to arise. And well, it all depends on how INEC, as much as possible, tries to see that we have a seamless process. Results are transmitted on time, just like they said there's going to be electronic transmission of results in real time. We can actually get that. And if the integrity of the election itself is not called to question, then that diminishes the chances of having post-election violence and rancor at the end of the day.
True. All right, let's take a look at some of the other papers that we have this morning. We have also the Guardian newspaper this morning, where it leads with the story that says private sector frets over FG's 2.43 trillion naira non-oil revenue target. Also, the writer says experts decry increasing taxes amid widening poverty, call for plugging of revenue leakages, explore property taxes. Yusuf urges government. You also have above that lead story, 6 victims of Edo train attack rescued as police nab 2 more suspects. You have also INEC denies releasing new final list of candidates. Election riggers behind plot to remove Yakubu, IPAC alleges. 1 killed, policeman injured, vehicles burnt as police Yoruba Nation activist clash in Ojota. You also would have at a footnote, Nigeria alert amid concerns over new COVID-19 variants. NLC berates presidential candidates for supporting petrol subsidy removal. So these are the major stories on the Guardian newspaper.
All right, the next newspaper we're going to be looking at is the Daily Independent, and it carries this major story on the front page. 2023 poll may face cancellation over rising insecurity. That's just what we've discussed right now. That is according to INEC, and it disowns supposed final list of candidates for 2023 election. Now that's quite interesting coming at this time. Just like we've seen in other papers, Yoruba Nation agitators ruffled over killing of member. Condemn security agencies, asks international community to intervene, and they vow to intensify efforts on Yoruba Nation agitation. And towards at the very side of the front page there, Port Harcourt Refinery commences operations in Q1 of 2023. That is according to Silva, and he says petroleum price needs to be market driven. Gunmen abduct Edo Customary Court president and ex-lawmaker. That is on page 8 of the Daily Independent. And Edo train kidnap, 6 persons freed as search team doubles rescue efforts. That is also on page 6. Talking about politics now, Tinubu Akpabio expresses concern over treacherous APC members. And another story here that says Ibera leaders flay Ohinoi over allegedly disrespecting Buhari Bello. And at the very top of the front page there, 89 trillion naira stamp duty charges. CSOs back down on calls for Emefiele's sack and arrest. Say earlier calls for sack prosecution based on falsehood. And with 4 months to go, I hope to retire in peace, says Buhari. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper.
All right, now on the Nigerian Tribune this morning, we have the lead story talk about security threats to next election real, says INEC, says commission leaving nothing to chance. So virtually all the papers are taking this story. Fuel importation to end by 2024, according to the federal government. 60,000 barrels per day Port Harcourt refinery to commence in the first quarter. FG claims 80% equity in modular refineries. New Naira notes now in ATM as cash withdrawal limit takes off. You'd also find one killed as Yoruba Nation agitators police clash in Lagos. Gunmen kidnap customary court president in Edo. 6 train kidnap victims rescued. Abductors of passengers demand 620 million naira. Well, just when we thought that we've gone past this, and it happens again. Yeah. And you know, the sad thing about the Edo incident is that it happened while they were at the station.
Exactly.
They were not...
It was not the train that was attacked. It was actually the station, yes.
You know, so, you know, you kind of wonder. I mean, if the train has left the station with them in the train, that would be different. Perhaps maybe the Abuja-Kaduna scenario. But this time around, they went into the station itself where passengers were and abducted them, you know, people there. And I'm wondering, are the stations secured? Is there any presence of security personnel in the stations at all?
Well, there should be. That is the thing. There should be a presence of security operatives. I know for sure when you were on the Abuja-Kaduna route, I mean, these stations are a bit more fortified now than they used to be. But the thing is, was it a situation of us, taking our eye off the ball because it was Kaduna-Abuja that was attacked, so let's focus on Kaduna-Abuja and we left all the others.
Leave the others.
Exactly. So I think maybe that was the situation that actually occurred then. And because if a moving train can actually can be a target for this, why not a stationary station? I mean, like it's easier when you look at it.
To even deploy more troops.
Exactly, it's easier. I think it's easier to protect than a moving train. So these are things that we really need to look at, and it all revolves around the lack of proactivity.
And it doesn't show really that lessons have been learned in this instance. And also, there's a likelihood of the fact that even if we had security presence in those stations, they are probably not enough to stop what happened from happening. So it's a case of maybe a similar scenario with the Kuje prisons as well.
Exactly, because
we also had security personnel stationed there.
But there was no resistance. There was no resistance whatsoever. Because if you look at, if you listen to the reports coming out from Edo, coming out from the station, there was no gun battle. They were not engaged. They didn't engage anybody. They just went in there, picked up whoever they wanted to pick up, and left. There was no resistance whatsoever. So it's just like the Kuje situation, whereby they went in there, they broke into the prison, took whoever they wanted to take, and at the end of the day, there was no resistance whatsoever. So even if there was presence of security operatives, it definitely was ineffective because it didn't actually stop anything from happening. So it really speaks to the lack of proactiveness that we have as when we don't act on intelligence that we receive, we don't safeguard against these things happening. Is when they happen, that is when we'll start running from pillar to post, trying to mount rescue. We're always talking about search and rescue or search and recover. We're not talking about how we can be able to stop these things from happening, and that is where we need to start going.
And now it appears that the abductors are demanding 620 million naira for the 6 train kidnapped, 6 persons kidnapped now in that incident. So it remains to be seen, really, what happens.
But not to belabor the bad news. I mean, like some of the victims have been rescued.
And some arrests have been made as well.
Exactly.
2 people have been arrested in connection to that. Well, what happens, I think the point that we are trying to make is that what happens after the abduction is not as important as what we do before it happens.
Exactly.
I think what is more important is the proactiveness, is steps that we put in place to make sure that these things don't happen,
to stop these
as
things
much
from
as possible.
Exactly. When we try to stop these things from happening, I think it's the best for everybody.
All right, let's take a look at some of the other papers?
Yes, let's take a look at the papers that we have. We have a First News newspaper, and it carries this major story on the front page. Insecurity may stall 2023 general elections. INEC cries out. Now, that's something that we've just discussed right now. And it comes with riders here that says, polls may face serious threat of cancellation if insecurity escalates. INEC chair assures commission won't leave anything to chance in ensuring adequate election personnel materials, and of course denies releasing final list of candidates, warned political parties and others. Still talking security, 1 killed, 2 officers shot as Yoruba Nation agitators, police clash in Lagos, many others also injured, vehicles burnt. 13.1 billion naira bid for forfeited Banana Island property fails, says EFCC. And talking about the Edo train attack now, security agencies rescue 6 more victims, which is something that we have seen in other papers and, of course, discussed right here as well. Obi will take office as president of Nigeria in 2023, and that's according to Eziefe. Airtel completes deal for acquisition of 4G, 5G spectrum at $316.7 million. And towards the top of the front page there, we can find the story, 3 years in the saddle, Diri to inaugurate historic Sagbama Ekeremo Road 40 years after completion. Now, that is quite interesting. Buhari campaigns for Tinubu in Adamawa, says Jagaban of Borgu can be trusted. And talking about health situation now, COVID-19, 64 million Nigerians fully vaccinated. And that is something to be proud about. These are the major stories on the front page of the First News newspaper this morning.
All right, now let's take a look at the Nation newspaper, where you have the lead story there. It says, why Nigerians should vote Tinubu Shetima by Buhari. You also would find kidnappers demand 620 million naira for 31 victims of Edo train attack. Made in Nigeria helicopter for inauguration before May 29. Silver 6 CBN's special fund for modular refineries. Airtel Nigeria announces acquisition of 5G spectrum. Withdrawal policy pushes up POS transaction charges. You also have polls threatened, INEC warns. So these are the major stories on the Nation newspaper.
All right, well, still talking the headlines now. We'll take a look at the Vanguard newspaper, and it's in keeping with what we have seen so far. Insecurity polls may be postponed, cancelled. That is according to INEC. Insists no going back on BVAS, and real-time polling unit results will be uploaded. INEC must manage security threats. That is according to IFES. That is this major story on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, and details of that can be found on page 5. DSS sued for arresting activists protesting bid to arrest Emefiele. And query, prominent Ibera leaders side with Koiki government. At the very bottom of the front page there, cash withdrawal, long queues in banks as implementation commences, and power generation drops by 7.6%. That is another story on the front page of the Vanguard. Talking about health now, COVID-19, fresh concerns as new Kraken variant emerges. And in sports, 2030 World Cup, Ronaldo to earn 200 million to promote Saudi's joint bid. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper this morning.
All right. Well, quite a lot of stories, but I think we've taken as much as we can take. But I'd like for us to talk about this story before we move on. Residents kick as FCTA moves to reintroduce park and pay in Abuja. So it basically means that for you to park your vehicle along maybe by the roadside, you will now have to be you will have to be charged to pay some amount of money. I'm wondering how this will play out. A lot of residents are already criticizing that move. I recall that back in 2014, there was a controversy that ensued as a result of this, even leading to a court injunction that stopped this from happening. And now we are seeing that it's going to be reintroduced. Well, I don't know how residents are going to be receiving this at a time like this.
The thing is, you don't introduce a policy without giving people alternatives. If people do not have where to park their cars, then they will have to park it by the roadside. If you have designated parking spaces that are available that people can have access to, then you can actually say, okay, if you park in the wrong place, then you will have to charge you for doing this. But we don't have designated parking lots. The ones that we have are actually not enough to cater for the vehicles that we have on the road. So definitely that's where you have to see this pushback. And the pushback is also coming with the situation whereby we all know the economy, how the economy is right now. Things are tight. You understand? So I mean, putting these kind of levies on people also brings the daggers will be drawn, and definitely there will be some serious pushback. So I think sometimes when we bring in policies, we put the cart before the horse. We should try to make provisions for alternative parking first before we say if you park here you'll get charged.
All right, then we'll see how all that will play out. We'll continue to bring you all the updates. This is much we can take. We'll take a short breather now, and then when we return, we'll continue with the show. Join us again at the top of the hour.
When a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, thank you for staying with us. It's Daybreak on Trust Television. If you are just joining, you can also watch us live on YouTube and also across all our social media platforms. Here, we give you a heads up on what to expect and some of the things that happen in the country so that you can make informed decisions here. Now, top of the hour, let's take a look at the headlines again. NSCDC arrests 5 suspected vandals in FCT.
And talking politics, Binani will be first elected female governor in Nigeria, says Buhari.
IBB off to Germany for medical checkup.
Now, let's take a look at the details. Operatives of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, have arrested 5 suspects for vandalizing bridges in Abuja. Olushola Odumosu, the spokesman of the Corps, said in a statement on Monday that members of the criminal syndicate were arrested following credible information and surveillance mounted by the Directorate of Intelligence and Investigation Crack Squad from the national headquarters of the Corps with the support of other stakeholders. The Commandant General of the NSCDC, Dr. Ahmad Abubakar Audi, worried by the incessant vandalism and theft of manhole covers on roads in the FCT, directed operatives of the Corps to redouble their efforts in ending the menace. Odumosu said following this directive, officers and men of the Corps immediately evolved new measures to protect critical national assets and infrastructure in the country, adding that the move had resulted in the arrest of the suspect who confessed to having carried out the act at night.
Now, talking about politics, President Muhammadu Buhari has said that the All Progressives Congress governorship candidate, Senator Aisha Dahiru Ahmed Binani, will become the first elected female governor in Nigeria. Buhari stated this when he visited Lamido of Adamawa's palace in Yola on Monday. Buhari and the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, among other APC dignitaries, are in Adamawa for a governorship rally. The president said Binani's election as the next governor of Adamawa will open opportunities for women in the country and send a signal to the world on Nigeria's leadership maturity. He said he will continue to provide moral support for her success in the forthcoming polls.
And former military president, retired General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, has traveled to Germany for a medical checkup. Alhaji Mahmoud Abdullahi, media aide and close family confidant, disclosed this to journalists in Minna. He said he cannot give more details about the trip since he did not discuss it with his boss before he traveled out. But the media aide assured the public that there was no cause for alarm, as the former leader had only traveled for a routine medical checkup.
And now to some more packages this morning. Students of Kaduna Polytechnic have decried the poor state of hostel facilities in the institution due to the abundant renovation work at the main campus of the school. The students said that the renovation of the hostel, which has been left unattended to for over a year, has forced them into renting accommodation outside the campus, a situation they say is detrimental to their safety and learning. The report.
This is one of the hostel blocks at the main campus in Kaduna Polytechnic. Students here say renovation work has been abandoned for more than a year.
This place has been abandoned since 2019, and we are even because as we heard that they sold this place to another person, but it's like that is not what's happened, because since then we never been seeing any changes in this place.
Even up to date, sometimes you might even be in the hostel, you can just see shouting that somebody said they found snake, a body snake in underground. Sometimes because of the dusty and very hectic environment, which is not supposed to be for students, even is keeping our life in danger.
So our hostel were dumped for a long time without renovating it, and we need a convenient environment for sleeping in order to learn more and better.
The Student Union of Kaduna Polytechnic, while addressing journalists, faulted the award of the contract for the project and are demanding the revocation of the contracts.
Outright revocation of contracts by the federal government through Ministry of Education and Infrastructure Construction and Regulation Commission, ICRC, prompt re-awarding of the contract to another contractor with reliable track record and immediate cash backing.
The Student Affairs Department of the institution also raised concerns on the abandoned hostel project, saying many students are seeking for accommodation which they cannot provide at the moment.
Part of the management, our concern is to see this place being renovated and we put our students back in because of the problem that we are sustaining now. We have still quite a number of hostels that we cannot accommodate the students, and now we have many students that are seeking for such accommodations. Some of them has to go outside, despite the fact the fear of threats, insecurity, that they have to, because we couldn't accommodate them in the system. But if you say that these contractors have done their work, then yeah, by then we don't have problem issuing such.
For them to have a conducive environment for learning, the students are appealing to the federal government to ensure the speedy completion of the abandoned project. Bella Musa, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
All right, now, despite heavy criticism and alleged non-performance by the present administration from critics and the opposition, the federal government says the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration is leaving behind a legacy of revamped security, social investment, self-sufficiency in staples, and probity, among others. Now, Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, stated this at the resumed PMB Administration Scorecard Series 2015 to 2023, where he described claims that the Buhari government achieved nothing in other sectors and only a little in infrastructure as false. The report.
The 16th edition of the President Muhammadu Buhari Scorecard Series opened with the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, saying beyond infrastructure, the President is leaving behind unprecedented legacies of development that have enhanced the quality of lives of beneficiaries.
Our pace-setting social investment programs like Empower, school feeding, conditional cash transfer, and GEP, that's Government Enterprise Empowerment Program, have benefited millions of our citizens, both young and old, and this can neither be trivialized nor denied. The Buhari administration is leaving a legacy of putting Nigeria on the path of self-sufficiency in many staples, including rice.
Mohammed added that the current administration has ensured inclusiveness, especially in the areas of infrastructure and social development.
There is no state in Nigeria today that is not witnessing at least a road or a bridge or a housing project, not one. The Honorable Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning has also told us here how Mr. President approved tranches upon tranches of funding to states, irrespective of their party affiliation, to enable them meet their obligations to the people. What of the legacy of the second Niger Bridge? Building that bridge almost 60 years after the commissioning of the Niger Bridge.
In the fight against corruption, he says the administration has exposed and put on trial those found culpable, as well as enacted laws that have strengthened the war against graft.
The EFCC, the ICPC, and other anti-corruption agencies have gone beyond merely arresting and prosecuting alleged corrupt officials to institutionalizing the fight against corruption through various programs. The Buhari administration is leaving a legacy of enacting landmark laws, including the harmonized mental health bill and discrimination against persons with disability prohibition bill, both of which have been signed into law by Mr. President.
The minister says although naysayers will always want to amplify the negatives of the present government and try to twist the records to suit their narrative, the PMB legacy of unprecedented development across all sectors in the past 7 years cannot be written off. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
All right, now, presidential candidate of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, Rabiu Kwankwaso, on Monday inaugurated a 1,053-member campaign council with a charge on its various organs to put hands on deck and drive the party to electoral victory. Now, Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman reports that the NNPP presidential candidate and his party goes public to raise funds. Take a look.
Barely 6 weeks to presidential election in Nigeria. The candidate of the NNPP is racing against time to set up the necessary machinery that will drive his campaign across 774 local government areas in the 36 states of the Federation in what promises to be a highly competitive race to the presidency.
Our political movement, both the TNM, Concosia, and the NNPP levels, is driven by committed and dedicated volunteers who invest their resources, time, and energy, bearing in mind that Nigeria's economy is in tatters and the income levels are shrinking and the purchasing power is weakening by the hour.
The New Nigeria People's Party is also not losing sight to the fact that it has to raise the necessary funds that would help in prosecuting the presidential campaign in view of scarce resources at its disposal.
We made it a duty that the few convoy that we have, we visit the people. By that, we were able to assess and see the ecstasy of young men and women who show interest, who show love for this great party.
We don't play money politics, but we need a whole lot of money for logistics and to ensure that we succeed fully by the help of God.
That this is time for us to lead, for you to lead Nigeria, because the course is clear and our victory is certain, inshallah.
A 1,053-member campaign council comprising of 6 components, chaired by the presidential candidate Rabiu Kwankwaso, is expected to take the challenging task of mobilizing Nigerians to vote for the party as it kicks off zonal rallies on the 12th of this month. The party says its message is a new and better Nigeria is possible. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Now, still talking politics, President Muhammadu Buhari has again urged Nigerians to resist vote buying in the forthcoming general elections. The president stated this in Yola on Monday, while flagging off the campaign of the APC governorship candidate. Trust TV's Salis Lawan reports that the party chieftains there are calling on the APC stakeholders to work towards ensuring victory for the party at all levels. Let's take a look.
Muhammadu Buhari Esquire, as it was tagged, agog with APC party faithful, national leaders and political gladiators as the APC governorship candidate Senator Aishatu Dahiru Ahmed Binani flags up her campaigns ahead of the general elections. One after the other, they made their entrance. The APC presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu makes his appearance.
Progress Binani, employment Binani, joy happiness Binani, welfare Binani, no great Binani. God bless you now.
The arrival of President Muhammadu Buhari in company of the APC governorship candidate, Senator Aishatu Dahiru Ahmed Binani, signaled the commencement of the event. State, national, and other leaders of the party took turns to eulogize the presidential and state governorship candidate, giving reasons why they should be trusted with their mandates.
It is now in Adamawa. You want to produce the first female governor in Nigeria. Haba, Mutane Adamawa, you are very lucky. Are you not lucky? Are you not lucky? So today is just to confirm that day.
here. This goes to show that Adama people are fed up with PDP government. So people are here eagerly waiting to vote out PDP in Adama State to bring back APC power.
Women showed solidarity to the only female governorship candidate in the country. Senator Binani promises more if voted into power. President Muhammadu Buhari again calls on the electorate to exercise their franchise by voting the ruling party back to power.
I advise you to please be focused. APC came into the political field to make sure that Nigerians are recognized at the borders of the country. They are nobody's state, they are nobody's goal. They are fellow Nigerians.
The governorship candidate was then presented the flag of the party, which symbolizes the mandate of the party. Binani is now set to embark on a rigorous campaign with just less than 3 months to the governorship election. From Yola, Salis Lawan, Trust TV News.
Candidate Peter Obi has held a town hall meeting at Efurung local government area as part of his campaign for the 2023 general elections. Fielding questions at the meeting, which also served as his presidential rally in Delta State, Obi told his supporters not to vote for tribe or religion, as no tribe or religion buys bread cheaper, but to vote for him en masse, as he represents commitment and capacity to turn around the country for good. Take a look.
I'm contesting this job as a Nigerian, and I'm contesting it because I know that I can turn around this country. I'm contesting it because I know that I'm qualified to do the job. Now, next month will be based on character. It will be based on competence, it will be based on commitment, and based on compassion. We want people who want to save Nigeria. And I'm saying to Nigerians, vote for me and hold me responsible. I have a new Nigeria.
Today, Nigeria again is at a crossroads. The economy is not working. Insecurity is ravaging the country. The country is deteriorating. Will worry carry last this time around? That is why I want to appreciate all of you today for coming out en masse to support the cause to change Nigeria, to support the cause to rescue Nigeria. And the answer to the resolutions of all the crises in the country reside in Labour Party and its presidential candidates.
All right, now that's it for the headlines and, of course, reports for this hour. I'll take a short break right here on Daybreak, and when we return, we'll take a look at some issues making the rounds in the country. Just stay with us.
That's great. It's good to see you. All right, thank you for staying with us. Now, taking a look at our discussion on the program today. Despite President Muhammadu Buhari's directive to the Nigerian Armed Forces and other security formations to end insecurity and restore order and stability in the country by the end of December 2022, terrorists in the form of insurgency, banditry and killings by separatists has continued to claim lives. Though the killings have not stopped, experts say that the last 4 months have witnessed a decline. At least 671 civilians, police officers and military personnel have been killed since the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aragbeshola, disclosed the President's directive at a joint world conference in September 2022. However, we have seen pockets of attacks and killings continue since the deadline elapsed. 4 policemen were killed on January 2nd, 2023, when gunmen bombed the convoy of the former governor of Imo State, Ikedi Odakim, in the Iheme Mbano local government area of the state. And also, despite the military operations across the country, bandits have also launched attacks on communities in Zamfara, Katsina, and Kaduna State, killing and abducting residents. The most recent was the attack and abduction of passengers at the train station in Edo State. We have some experts with us in the studio to talk about this. Will Singh Inalegu, he is a retired AIG of police, and also Stephen Okori, a security consultant. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I recall that you were with us in the studio when this deadline was issued by the government to end insecurity in December 2022, and we were expectant that something new will happen, even though some people queried this deadline, saying that, I mean, what were the new measures that have been put in place that will guarantee the realization of this deadline? But we've not heard so much about the new strategies or the new measures that were put in then. But then we were just hopeful that, okay, perhaps maybe it's a security issue, and we may not need to hear the new strategies or the new measures put in place and the rest of them. But here we are. This is January 2023, and just 2 days ago, we had this attack in Edo State where we've seen abduction. It doesn't look as much as though lessons have been learned. Stephen, let me start with you.
Thank you again for inviting me. I want to start by saying that perhaps the president relied on a quote by the late General Colin Powell, former U.S. Secretary of State, where he talked about perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. You know, the president, I want to believed that his government and the armed forces and the police are capable of carrying out the task of achieving success in trying to see that the insecurity issues are reduced drastically, but not eliminated, because a society without crime is impossible. Where you have situations where some citizens are law-abiding, you expect that some will be deviants. You know, they will not go according to the laws of the land. You know, so as the president of the country and commander-in-chief, you expect that he should charge the military and the police to see how to carry out the task of protecting lives and property. You know, but from analysts, security analysts and all that, they've come out to say that at least there's a kind of reduction in the crime rates and all that, but you don't expect a complete elimination of these incidents or attacks happening.
All right, Mr. Alego, let me come to you now. The deadline was given. It has elapsed. Is this now the Nigerian security architecture entirely waving a white flag that this is beyond them?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think it's beyond them, and they have shown that it's not beyond them. I think you recall that since the deadline was given, we've had a lot of activities by the security forces. I think a lot of bandit commanders were eliminated through aerial bombardment and other clearance operations. You know, when the CNC comes to talk like this,
You see, you have a strategic meeting, and then you ask a question, what does it take to end or to bring it to barest minimum? You really cannot end like my brother rightly said. And then they say, what do you need? Okay, we need that, this and that and that. And you know, from their calculation, they say, okay, if we do this, if we have this, we are likely to achieve this outcome. It is on that premise that the CNC will come and say, okay, within a period of 4 months, we will have a remarkable, a significant reduction. Because these are social issues. It's not saying that you can mix one chemical with the other chemical and you get a result. It's highly fluid. But what is gratifying though, we are not having mass kidnap like school children. I mean, it was almost becoming impossible for parents to send their boys to school. And so people were very apprehensive.
I mean, but we saw the Edo incident, which seems to have, rubbished all the things that, all the progresses that have been made in the past few months. I mean, carrying out an attack on in such a coordinated manner is a major concern here. Yeah. And part of the problem is we do not see resistance. It doesn't look like there's a battle between perhaps security personnel stationed in those areas, like the Edo scenario, for instance. We didn't hear about any gun duel between the security personnel and the abductors that came. So that's a major concern.
Let me explain to you. You see, once you have such operations, one of the first considerations is avoidance of collateral damage. That is why people complain. They say, we are just seeing a checkpoint ahead of us, and the kidnappers suddenly emerge from the bush, fire sporadic shots, and kidnap people. And the police didn't do anything. What the first consideration is, if I fire, am I likely to kill one of the victims? I could kill 10 of the abductors. So you've got to think out some of these steps. And then when you talk about the Igweben, I think the village is a carrier somewhere like that. It's about 1.5 kilometers from Igweben. It is in a heavily forested place. Even the access road to their location is very difficult terrain. They are coming. So what I'm trying to say, I'm not giving an excuse, but when these people have been so reduced, they just want to make a statement. And they look at where is highly vulnerable. Of course, they are supposed to have early warning system. They are supposed to have all this. But
exactly.
But when you look at some of this scenario, we will not try to give in to these terrorists. What is their aim? Give an impression that security forces or government is not doing anything, whereas they are doing a lot. And so they look at the police.
You talk about collateral damage, but it doesn't seem like it's so much of a collateral damage, or perhaps maybe lack of patriotism, or maybe negligence on the part of some of the security personnel. We've seen in the case of the Kuje prisons, for instance. Would you also say that it was for fear of collateral damage that we didn't see the resistance that was needed to defend the prison from the attack that took place? I mean, we had security personnel stationed there as well. So,
you see,
maybe I'll let Stephen first.
Yeah, but I would have loved to do some give some clarity, but it's okay.
You'll do that.
Okay. For me, I on the train issue in Edo, I think there was a detection failure, if you ask me, because ordinarily our security agencies ought to have detected that an attack was going to come. Intelligence gathering has a role to play there. If that was a failure, then how about denying the terrorists or the criminal elements from having access, the opportunity to get to the train station? It also behoves on the security agents to see that they deny them access. Don't give them the opportunity to strike at all, to even send that message, to the government that they are doing something, And also, if they had the opportunity to get into or get within the premises of the train station, the security agents, if they were on ground, at least they would have, in the event of trying to see how to stop them, they would have, in a way, delayed them from carrying out the attack. And I want to say that the response from the security agencies was also poor. This attack happened during the day. If there was a chopper or a helicopter in the Edo Police Command, and they, took swift actions, they would have at least seen where they were taking them to. We are experiencing dry season now. So no matter how thick the forest is, at least we'll be able to, there'll be some visibility from air, to see that, okay, these adopters have been taken to XYZ direction or location. So for me, the response to was also poor. So there are lessons that we ought to have learned from the previous attacks. Now, like yesterday, I was watching television and I saw that there was presence of security agents, police, vigilantes, and the likes, stationed in the station, at the train station. Were they not supposed to be there before these attacks happen? You see, we take a lot of things for granted, and this, especially security. We ought to be proactive. We only react. That's the challenge I have. Now we are reacting. They have taken some people away. They are now stationed at the rail station. What are they doing there now? So we should not be saying that we're always reactive. Our response is also very slow. We need to. There are a lot of things that we need to. The gap that we have experienced, in trying to see that we protect lives and property, those gaps, in trying to see how to improve, we should see that we are closing the gaps.
It seems like Mr. Naligo has something to say.
Yeah. It's unfortunate this happened. But I want to repeat that that place is heavily forested. Now, when you have a train station, you're supposed to have a police post. It may not be up to a police station. Therefore, you are going to have about 4 officers on duty. And you may not even have those 4 officers on duty. So, and when these people are coming, they come with a number that will be overwhelming. And my brother rightly put it, why should they come at all undetected? And that is the crux of the matter. Because in a democracy, emphasis is placed on community policing, making every member of the society a police officer, even though not wearing uniform. Therefore, they are able to get heads up from the community. We've seen some people gathering here. Because if they come to that station and the security forces engage them in a shootout, it's already a failed operation because they shouldn't even come in the first place. And so you try to nib in the bud. That place is heavily forested. And then you talk about the role of technology, which is a force multiplier. With the experience of Abuja-Kaduna train attack, all the stations should have minimum IP cameras. With 200,000, you can have 2 at the station. You buy one for around 90,000, and you put them, and you put a SIM card, and you are able to monitor whatever is going on there. But human intelligence given by the community, especially when you have an isolated place. That place, I made some inquiry. By the way, in the south and southeast, the harmattan doesn't dry the bushes there. It remains as thick as ever. And this place is not even at Igweben. It's about 1.5 kilometers from the general hospital. And so it is so located that the indigens there, the business activities there is very low. The only people selling granite and banana. And some people, you walk to Agbo to catch a vehicle to Agbo. So when such places have been sighted, it is important that you make at least the access road to the place to be motorable in a way that vehicles can go. Assuming that we had a response from Edo Command, well, that place is under the Railway Police Command, if you have a response, because of those thick bushes, those officers might have been ambushed and killed unnecessarily. My suggestion, therefore, would be that such locations, because of their vulnerability, there should be technology. Cameras in those places.
Okay, you know, at the end of it, in the end of the analysis, it points to one thing that we continue to hammer on, which is the issue of intelligence gathering. You know, how is it that we are still unable to have a grasp on the issue of intelligence as far as dealing with insecurity in this country is concerned? Why is it so difficult? What does it take really to have some of these things in place? We have technology now that can do the job almost 50%, you know, by at least providing timely information, you know, real-time information for security personnel to act upon. But why is this such a difficult task?
Well, you know that security is an expensive venture. When you have layers in the communities, you pay some level of stipend. Ordinarily, there should be a public-spirited thing that you see something go wrong and you bring it to attention of relevant authority. But this needs a lot of education to sink in. But I think there should be that conscious effort to have intentional collaboration between the NPF and other security agencies, especially the DSS, so that some of this is, in addition to relying on the communities, that active collaboration and cooperation could bring a lot of things. So when you are talking about this intelligence, you must have a situation whereby you have that team that carries out analysis from lessons learned, and that is put into this. So I think it's about funding, it's about intentionality by the relevant agencies to share intelligence on a need-to-know basis, and then what the community brings. Do you respond? And that is why the issue of robust response comes in place. Because if I give you information and the way you handle it, it's going to inform whether I go ahead to continue to collaborate with you. So there need to be adequate resources that will enhance police response in terms of fuel, in terms of vehicle, in terms of welfare for personnel, and you see them do this thing and people get confidence. It's about getting the confidence of the public.
All right, so this brings the to question what I actually wanted to raise. Now, this failure of having the required intelligence, or maybe having the cooperation of communities when it comes to getting this required intelligence, it's just like you pointed out now, it's an issue of confidence in the security agencies. Where did the failure happen?
Yeah,
Is it a failure of the state in providing these facilities or the resources for the security agencies, or from the agencies themselves not being able to create that confidence between them and the community?
I think they are all encompassing, if you ask me. Crime, if you ask me, are local, you know. You see, there's this trust deficit between the populace, you know, and the Nigerian police, if you ask me. You know, so that trust deficit now, I think a whole lot needs to be done, you know, to build that trust back. Because these criminal elements, if they try to see how to perfect their activity, you know, their heinous activity from our local communities before they come to see how to execute them. You know, this what happened in the Edo incident now, they arranged it somewhere, you know, and one or two members of the communities around must have seen them pass through and all that. But, you know, and we need an awareness, you know, they need to be educated too as well, you know. Talk to them in their own local dialect for them to understand that if you see something that is suspicious, you make it available, pass the information to the nearest police station.
So the onus is on who now to actually do that?
Now, the onus is on both we, security is everybody's responsibility, So we, the citizens or the populace and the police, there's need for collaboration between the populace and the police to see how to execute that, As they see, they must have to let the police know and for the police to take action, You see, there's this complacent attitude, in our law enforcement. Sometimes informations are passed to them and they take it for granted. They just, talk about, just joke over it and all that. So every information that comes, I think it's very important.
When you talk about our security personnel, they themselves are targets. So by the data that was just analyzed and released recently, we understand that 671 recorded deaths in the last 4 months.
Yes.
And out of that number, 47 were police officers,
yes,
and 10 were soldiers. So you have 57 police officers now, and that is against the backdrop of the fact that we are talking about the insufficient number of our security personnel and all of that. So you have security personnel that they themselves are targets.
Yes,
in a couple of cases, we've seen how some of them attached to certain VIPs were attacked and then were killed, in the process and all of that. How do we make sure that our security personnel are alert and are well protected to carry out their duties?
You see,
because in the cases that we heard about, before you answer, the people that they are attached to,
don't lose their lives,
are safe.
Yes,
but the security personnel,
even in the case of that popular pastor in Auchi that was attacked, he lost some police officers and he managed to escape. And the Senator Ifeanyi Ubatu as well lost police officers as well. You see, I think the police really need to take it hard on these politicians and all these popular pastors and all that have the wherewithal to provide, to ask for security, as you protect yourself, these security personnel, they also have lives as well. If you are buying bulletproof car for yourself, you should ensure that you make provision for them as well. You don't expect them to be in an ordinary vehicle when you have gone to either have one or two issues with your political opponents or whatever, and you now put their lives at risk in trying to protect you. So I think it's something that should be between the Nigerian police, the hierarchy of the Nigerian police, and people that are aware, that have the wealth to come and ask for such protection. As you buy to protect yourself, you should also make some reasonable provision to see that these security agents are also protected.
Wilson, perhaps you can talk to us more about this.
Yeah.
What does it entail, really, dispatching personnel to VIPs? And what measures, are there policies, are there clear directives on how to guarantee that these personnel are also protected and they are well taken care of? Is it, whose mandate is it, or whose job is it to make sure that they are perhaps maybe well kitted and then they work in an environment that with what they require?
It's very saddening that we lost a lot of officers in the last 4 months, and it's happening all the time now. But I think, in addition to the very important points that my brother raised, is the issue of training and retraining. How do you survive an ambush? Because even if we have armored vehicles, what if the killers decide to barricade the passage and they make sure the vehicle stops? So it's very important that they are provided with body armor, ballistic helmet.
Whose job is to do that?
Is it? It's the police. It's the police. It's part of their accoutrement. It's part of their addresses, and we have. The number, of course, may not go wrong. But, if you have a pickup and it is soft body, and the first round hits the driver, it could go and crash, and the personnel, when you don't even know where you are, it's easy for you to get killed. So there could be some minimal, especially the open areas, the seat area. You could have some glasses. I think so. That the first rounds shouldn't hit the officer.
Is there any responsibility on the personnel that the police are guarding to provide bulletproof and perhaps certain kits that they will require? And if such a person is intending to do so or willing to do so, what does it entail? Is there any process that will require or anything like that?
If you intend to support, like we have people buy vehicles for the MPF and other security agencies, there is a procedure to follow. But if you are bringing in bulletproof vehicles or bulletproof vests or other things, you need an end user certificate through the Office of the National Security Advisor, who will grant that end user certificate. And I think members of the public who are desirous of this service could route such. They cannot on their own purchase those things, but they could write to the IG and say, we intend to give support. Because in the police armory and police stores, you have bulletproof vests, you have ballistic helmets, and for armored personnel carriers that we have, they are not used for the escort of private individuals.
Would you consider that the bureaucracy around this is could be a problem sometimes?
No, I don't think it's a problem, because we've had state governments apply to the police.
I'm talking about individuals, not
the individuals
governments.
can also apply. But when you are applying to the police for the special protection unit, officers will be deployed to you. When they come, you should ask, are you with your body armor? Do you have a ballistic helmet? And if they say, oh God, this is all we have, and you say you want to buy, of course you cannot buy. You will still route your request to the IG. But for a governor, it can be part of what it can give to support the police. But I'm not aware that individuals can purchase. But it is important, an incumbent on the police management and the respective commissioners of police, that in deploying personnel, these things should be considered. And where you don't have, you say, well, we are not giving you our officers, we need this. And then those people can gather. After all, when you have a problem, the police and the public are supposed to come together to find common approach to address those issues. And this could be regarded as one of those issues. But of also critical importance is the issue of training and retraining. Because you can have all the equipment. When you are on the road, what should you watch out for? If you are in the Southeast, once you are in uniform, you are automatically targeted, because they are challenging the authority of the federal government. And they don't think the federal government should have presence in their area. That's the impression that I get from what goes on. Therefore, if you're a police officer in the Southeast, particularly, you know that you are marked for attack. But you should also be given the right training, that even if you have 10 people come to attack 2 or 3 of you, how do you take them out? And you have to develop sources within the communities. And then when you have those sources within the communities, you are able to nib in the bud some of this attack. So in addition to whatever equipment that you are going to be provided with, you should also have that basic training. And then the MPF, as part of the community policing principle, should consider giving training to communities. Where you have communities, you should talk to them, gather them, tell them about kidnap, tell them about attack on officers and how they can report. And then those can cascade that information and knowledge to the larger society. So there is a need for conducting training for the community members about current events on security. Then they can become more useful
All right, I'd like to circle back before we move on. I'd like to circle back to this issue of deploying policemen to VIPs for their personal protection. A lot of people have a problem with that because we're always complaining that we don't have enough manpower, we don't have enough police officers, but still you have certain individuals having a certain number of policemen with them for their own protection, whereby they could actually be deployed to other places to secure critical government infrastructure and, of course, ordinary citizens. In other places, in other countries, you have private security outfits that are licensed to carry arms, which provide these services for private individuals that actually want to have that level of security. Do you think having that kind of thing in this country will mitigate issues like this, whereby we have to remove our own policemen and for these VIPs to be protected?
Yeah, it will go a long way to see how to aid or help in what we're saying. I'm happy that my Oga, former AIG, is here. At the moment, we have less than 400,000 police officers or personnel, and we'll have over 200 million Nigerians, I was surprised some time ago when I saw a private individual, a wealthy individual, and the number of policemen that I saw in his convoy, I begins to imagine that why is this happening? In his house, you see numbers of police. In his convoy, he lives somewhere in the Mitama axis there, And when you look at these numbers following these wealthy individuals and all that, and you begin to imagine how many do we have left to police us or to protect us? The number is very, very inadequate. So if, of course, you know that our law, frowns at private security having guns or ammunitions and all that, But if we think or go beyond this, we are quick to go and see how to borrow. If it's working somewhere in other climes and you think that we can apply it here and it will work for us, there's nothing wrong in trying to see how to adopt such a policy. Okay. It will go a long way in helping us. And if it's very impossible to do that, then there's need for the police and other law enforcement to see how to recruit more. We need them to be recruited to increase the number,
All right. Now, before we wind down the discussion, yesterday we saw INEC raise certain alarms about the conduct of the 2023 general elections. I would like for you to give your perspectives on that just before we end the discussion. They are saying that there's a likelihood of either cancelling or postponing the general elections due to security concerns here and there. What's your reaction to that?
First of all, INEC impresses me a lot because of their communication. They always keep Nigerians informed of developments, and I think that's very important. There is no election that you don't have security issues around it. But what is so important is how do you address those issues of security? Because by now, the threat analysis for the 2023 elections have been done, and they continue to evolve. Now, what are the likely issues that you're going to have in this election? Attacks on government facilities on INEC, how do you stop those attacks? Attacks on INEC staff, attack on voters, and all that. But I think what is important to me is that I think the election is going to be conducted. But the fear that I nurse is the emotion that is going into the election by the different supporters of the different political parties. I see that a lot of people are being too emotional instead of, and so for such people to reason is going to be very difficult. And so there is a need for more education that go there and cast your vote. INEC should ensure that there is transparency. They should be properly, they should prepare themselves properly.
All right.
And another thing I want to warn, the outcome of the election. The January 6th issue in the United States. Brazil
Currently.
has borrowed a leaf from me.
Yeah.
And I think our security agencies must readjust their thinking cap
For post.
and begin to look at it. That is why I talked about the emotion that people are not being rational. People stay in their houses and think because of their vote, their candidate has won. And if their candidate doesn't win because of their vote, the election is rigged.
All right. Well, quickly, Stephen, in 1 minute.
Yes, okay. I want to come from the angle of where something needs to be done about protecting voters, observers, and all these other journalists and all this other group that comes to various polling units. There's a law that says that policemen are not supposed to carry arms to the polling units, But I think that with the current state that we are in Nigeria, there's something that they need to do. There needs to be armed security presence, so that voters will have this confidence that when they come out to vote, they are not either killed or harmed,
All right. Well, thank you so much for your perspective. That's the much we can take. Wilson Inalegu, a retired AIG of Police, and Stephen Okore, security consultant. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak and sharing your perspectives with us.
Thank you for having me.
That's our show for today. In case you've missed, you can catch up across all our social media platforms and also on our YouTube channel. Time for us to say goodbye. Join us again tomorrow for another time. I am Ayuba Ilya. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.